With COVID-19, police murders, and an increase in violence of just people killing people, the loss of loved ones is at an unprecedented high. And with all this death, how are we dealing with this? So on today's show, I will have a licensed professional counselor talking about loss and giving us some tools on how to deal with it. So this is your girl, Ms. Entertainment. Let's talk about it. This is your girl, Ms. Entertainment. I am your host for Let's Talk About It. So welcome to my world. We're getting ready to start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. She is a licensed professional counselor with over 20 years of clinical experience specializing in substance use disorders, mood disorders, family and relationship conflicts, parenting, codependency, and trauma. Please welcome Patrice D. Alexander. Thank you, Patrice. Thank you so much for joining me because I really want to just jump right in because we got a lot of stuff going on with COVID-19, with cops doing their thing, and people are really dealing with grief and loss at an unprecedented type at this magnitude, I don't think ever. So let me ask you this. Is there a healthy way to grieve, or is there such thing as a healthy, or is there an unhealthy way to grieve?
Yes, I think the healthiest way to grieve is to allow yourself to feel all of the emotions. I think the unhealthy way to grieve is to try to stop yourself from grieving. We live in a society where everyone wants that kind of instant gratification, or to not feel pain when pain is just a part of life, or not to feel suffering, and that's impossible. So, we want to take like a pill, to stop a headache, or we want to take, um, sometimes a medication to not feel anxious or sad, or, any type of discomfort. And the reality is, like, it's a part of life. And sometimes us trying to stop ourselves from feeling those natural feelings just causes more suffering.
Speaking of time, then, is there because I really think that everybody grieve differently and at different times. But like if you go on for so long, some people say, just get over it. You should be over it by now. Is there a set time that people should have like a stop point where they should be better, and not grieving? Is there such thing?
No, I don't think so. The two truths that are about grief. Well, first, I do want to take a moment and distinguish between grief and loss.
Okay.
They're two separate things. So, a loss is like an event, and there's different types of loss. We can experience a material loss, where your home is burned down in a fire, or you lose your job, or someone steals money from you. That's a material loss. We have relationship losses where there's divorce, or even remarriage, or just a breakup. You don't even have to be married, or obviously someone dies, then you lose that relationship. um, we experience loss as we go through life, and go in different developmental stages. As we get older, sometimes our body, like the joints, like we don't move as well, or we need reading glasses, or
Now that's where I am.
me too. So there's that loss of that bodily function. And there's just there's so many different types of losses. And so that's a response to like an event that one experiences. And then we have grief, where grief is a process. And I look at grief as the response to loss. It's a process. So I did want to, make that distinction. And so in terms of the time, like I was going to say, the two truths about grief: one, it's universal. Um, Everybody is going to experience it at some point. So it's universal, everyone across all cultures, across all walks of life. It's also unique. um, we're not all going to experience, even though we may have the same experience, we're not going to go through the process of grieving the same way. So the time thing is unique to each individual.
Okay. So now me, I personally, I lost my mom when I was in my late teens, and I lost my dad. Who wasn't. I grew up, I was raised by my mother, but I know, and I have some family members and friends that have lost kids, children. Now I can thank God I can only assume that it's a difference in those type of loss. Can you talk more about that? Is there a difference, or how do you get past losing a child? Because I think I personally would think that's you, that loss right there is just you. I don't know. It's hard to recover from.
Right. So that loss, it is different. It's a so now we're talking about again those categories. That's more of the intrapsychic loss, in terms of like mentally, like what that um person or that role, the function of the role like signifies. So the role is, parent versus child. And psychologically, you know, parents feel that they should, or we, I'm a parent, should outlive our children.
Absolutely.
And when that doesn't happen, it feels unnatural. It feels unfair. And so now I've experienced the loss of my role, as a parent, and the loss of all my like hopes and dreams, that I had for my child, wanting to see them, mature,
Hmm.
in their life, and especially depending on the age that the child, passed on. Um, so that compounds, that those emotional processes, because of the role.
It, I guess, is there? I don't know. It's just I can't even imagine just losing a child. So yeah, I guess it is definitely a difference. Now, in my research, I know that there were like 5 stages of grief. How do you get, I guess, through the different stages where you're living back, living again
Yeah.
versus just
Um,
grieving?
sure. So that those 5 stages that everybody like refers to were, it was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and it's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And
Hmm.
so those 5 stages, each one again is different, and not everybody is going to experience like all of those stages. And they don't go in any particular order,
Really?
no, there's like graphs and things that have been done that kind of show this like inverted curve, where we start with the denial and then the anger, and depending on which graph you're looking at, it's either depression or bargaining, and then the end is acceptance. And I do think there is some like fluidity in that process, but I think people can like move back and forth, through, those 5 stages. And denial is like natural because you don't want to believe or, accept. Obviously, the opposite of denial is acceptance.
Hmm.
That this person, maybe, or this event like is happening.
Right.
Um, the bargaining is also natural, like because you want to know like why is this happening, or you want to, if you're a religious or spiritual person, and someone's on their like proverbial deathbed, you might start bargaining with God, like if you let this person live, I'll do X, Y, and Z. Or play the, if the person's already transitioned, the like, well, if only I had gotten them to the hospital in time, if only I had gotten them to a different hospital, if only they, the doctor had found, this diagnosis sooner. Um, all of that's the bargaining, and then the depression, and the anger. Um, and I think we have to go through what we have to go through to get to the point where we can accept that grief is a natural, part of life. It's a process, and allow ourselves to go through the process.
So, as a family member, how do you help someone that's going through the grief? What do you do?
I would say, don't try to fix it, for them. Don't rescue them. Oftentimes in our society, especially if it's someone that's close to us, a family member, a friend, it's hard to see someone in their own pain, and we try to help them get over it, because it's uncomfortable for us to like watch them suffering, and so we want to rescue, we want to fix it. We want to make them feel better. We want to make them laugh or take them out to try to get their mind off of it.
Yeah.
And I would say, the best thing you can do is just be there, just be accessible, and um, be a support person, and allow them to grieve, and likewise allow yourself to grieve, because watching someone you love go through something, it's a loss for you as well, and you're going to have your own emotions, and to let yourself feel those uncomfortable feelings.
Okay. Okay. Now, when somebody is going through the process and they're still stuck in that depressed stage, is there something that is too long to be there, where if I'm somebody looking at, from the outside, or is it too long for them to be depressed and ready, as I call it, to go sit on somebody's couch, like your couch, you know? And
Yeah.
is there such thing as being too long stuck in a depressive mode, where I should, as a friend or family member, I should be concerned?
Sure. So there's the situational depression, which is, natural sadness in response to a particular situation, or what the losses, the types of losses that we've talked about. And then there's clinical depression, where it's a chemical imbalance in the brain, where the person isn't going to be able to move through that. And so they would definitely need to have an evaluation to determine, like, you know, how long has this person been in this depressed state, and what is it in response to, and what's their level of functioning. If they're not eating, not sleeping, not able to go to work, not showering, if it's you know experiencing significant impairments in their level of functioning, then it's time to go sit on someone's couch.
Okay. So what are your thoughts about support groups? Because I had at the end of last year, because my daughter, she suffers from, I guess, the clinical depression, and she had a really low point, and then it's almost like all of a sudden. And what are your thoughts of, should, because she's changed doctors and she got on different medications, about doing support groups. And even for me as a parent, even though I'm not there, but just to watch her, go through this, it was heartbreaking. So what are your thoughts around support groups?
They are absolutely beneficial. As human beings, we need other people. A lot of times we suffer in silence, or we try to go at it alone, for different reasons. Sometimes it's the shame and the embarrassment because of the stigma that goes along with, seeing a counselor, or needing help. We believe we should be able to just pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, and sometimes you can, and sometimes you can't. It's just like moving a piece of furniture. Sometimes you might be able to move it by yourself, and sometimes it's just going to be too big, too heavy, too hard to move, on its own. And it's okay to ask for help. There's nothing wrong. It doesn't mean that you're a weak person or weak-willed or any of those things, or that we tell ourselves or that other people may think or tell us. It's okay to need help and ask for help. And I think support groups are a great way to get that help. So absolutely, and a cost-effective way. I led a parent support group for years for parents that had a loved one with that was suffering from a substance use disorder, um, and there was no way that they were going to be able to know what was healthy, what wasn't healthy, how to respond, without having the support of other people that were going through the same thing. It really does reduce the shame, to know that you're not the only,
Alone.
going through this, and you don't have to be alone, while you're going through it.
I like that, and I think I think that's really, really, really good. So let me ask you this for him, because he's brought up, for his finances. Now, if a person is maybe not ready in their mind to sit on that couch, but know they need some help, are there some techniques that they can do, just until they're, to get them through the grief process, um, until they're ready or can afford it? I know support groups is one option. Are there any other options?
We're in such a technology age right now. I would definitely say research, the internet. There are blogs, available, where there's information right at your fingertips. So there is a such thing as bibliotherapy, like reading like books, reading blogs, definitely trying different things. Support groups, there are free groups. Just keep looking until you find what you need, because again, it's unique, your needs. Yeah, I lost both of my parents, as well at different times. But just because we both have experienced that doesn't mean that our needs are going to be the same. And what might be helpful to me may not be helpful to you, and vice versa. So I did do a grief support group when I lost my mom, and it was the best thing that I could have done. It really did help me, during that time. And 9 years later, when I lost my dad, I was able to pull from that experience. I didn't necessarily need the grief group at that time, and so there's just try different things. Don't let money be a barrier.
Got it. Got it. Are there, when you talked about blogs, and are there any books that you may recommend, or even blogs that you may recommend for people that's not ready, or don't have the funds, but they can do on their own? Are there? Are
Um,
there?
the one book that I found that I would recommend, and I'm kind of leery because there's so many books out there, so many. So definitely go to Amazon, type in grief or loss, and scroll through and find something that speaks to you where you are. Would be my first recommendation. And if I had to recommend like one book, 'cause there's so many, it would be Moving Through Grief. And that book is by Gretchen Kubacki. She's a psychologist. It's proven techniques for finding your way after any loss. And the reason why I recommend that book is that it's based on acceptance and commitment therapy, which is an evidence-based like therapy. They're just proven techniques. It's something that I recently started like studying, and am learning to practice. And it really resonates with me because it looks at suffering and grief as a natural process. And the whole premise of like ACTS, the acceptance and commitment therapy, is that these are like techniques to help you, with life. um, yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Might have to look at that myself. Because I still, just to be, transparent, even though my mom has been gone a long time, but sometimes I do feel like I enter back into those stages, it's just almost, sometimes it's almost like I just lost her, but she has been gone a long time. And it's like, okay, you need to get it together. That's me talking to myself. Yes, I do that sometimes. But that's another reason. Is there a time where it's just too long? But as you were saying, it's like, it's okay to remember, the folks, and then I guess there will be some sadness, but as long as you get back up and continue moving, that's the key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think we have to increase our flexibility and tolerance around those uncomfortable emotions.
Okay.
Um, and so that acceptance and commitment therapy is all about looking at, increasing our flexibility, just being more mindful of what we're experiencing and not thinking like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not over this by now? Why do I still feel this way? It's more of like leaning into that emotion and experiencing it, and not, uh, thinking that you shouldn't feel, this negative emotion.
Oh my goodness, this has been amazing. I appreciate you taking some time and just talking about this. Because I know sometimes it's kind of hard, people to really kind of like, but it's a necessary talk, and and everybody at one point in time is going to experience some type of loss or grief. Any final words?
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for inviting me to be a guest. It's been my honor and privilege. So hopefully I said some things that'll be of benefit to your audience. So thank you for having me.
Well, you're definitely beneficial to me. So, so I definitely appreciate you. I definitely appreciate you. I definitely appreciate you.
All
So
right.
thank you so much.
Sure. All right.
We had another amazing show today. I want to thank my guest, our sponsor, Terradome Entertainment. And if you have any questions for the counselor, please send your questions to info@terradomeent.com. That's info@terradomeent.com. And she will make a video responding to your questions. So that's our show. You guys be safe. Salute.